Good evening, everyone. We'll give folks another moment to join us and then we will get started. All right. Well, I know we may have a few others join us tonight, but for the sake of time, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to another one of our Tiger Talk family webinars of our summer series. My name is Casey Ford and I serve as a director in the Gantt Center for Student Experience here at Clemson. And a large part of my role involves supporting you all as parents, families, and supporters of our newest students. And so we want to make sure that you all feel confident and equipped with all the knowledge that you need to support your student as you continue to make this transition. There are a few ways that we do that. I know that many of you may have or will in the future have the chance to visit us on campus for a Ready, Set, Roar session this summer. Maybe you have navigated the virtual orientation platform a little bit, but this is another way that we do that. So we have a series of Zoom webinars throughout the summer that feature some of our campus partners and give you all a chance to really have some more in-depth face time with those folks and get some questions answered. And so tonight's is all about well-being. We've got a great panelist of partners here to share a little bit more about who they are on campus and what resources they have to offer you and your student. A couple quick housekeeping things. So we'll continue kind of this introduction into our content tonight. Let all of our panelists introduce themselves and share their content. And then we will have some questions and answers both throughout the content and then towards the end of our presentation. We will then wrap up with any final reminders and send you on your way. You'll also notice that we are, of course, in a Zoom webinar. I know that many of you are likely very familiar with that functionality at this point, but a couple quick reminders for you. You'll note that the audio and video has been muted. That is intentional, just so we can spotlight all of our panelists as they are sharing all that they have to share with you all. You'll also see a couple tools on your toolbar. One of those is the question and answer button. We would ask that you use that specifically to submit any questions. So the chat feature is what we will use to send out any web links or resources that sort of go along with the content that we are sharing. But if you'll submit questions into that question and answer button, that allows all of us as panelists to see those and either answer with a message right back to you directly or to answer that out loud for all to hear. The other thing I would point out that you can see on your screen is that this session is being recorded. So we do record each of these. We publish the sessions on the Clemson Family Programs YouTube page, and then we send out that recording through the Clemson Parent and Family Experience portal. So if you want to come back and watch this one later, never fear, you will have a chance to do just that. Okay, at this point, I will pass it over to our presenters to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'll get started. My name's Dr. Chris Pellick. I'm a psychiatrist by training and currently serving as interim director of student health services. I also oversee our psychiatry counseling and well-being services, which incorporates a component we'll hear shortly. It's called CAPS, Counseling and Psychological Services, in our Healthy Campus.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Goree. I'm the director of Healthy Campus and work with Dr. Pellick. And we focus on public health initiatives for the students, risk reduction initiatives, so your general health education and promotion to help keep our students healthy and safe.
Hey everyone, I'm Randy Davis. I'm the Associate Director for the Office of Advocacy and Success, and we manage the CARE Network, which we'll talk more about.
Hi everyone, I'm Maria Victoria Perez. I'm the Associate Dean of Students here at Clemson, and I get to work alongside great colleagues in the Office of Advocacy and Success and also to support any of their student needs.
Hi everyone, I'm Tessa Byer. I'm the University Ombuds here at Clemson. And if you've never heard of the Ombuds Office, you will soon find out what that is. But spoiler, we are an office that supports students, faculty, staff, parents, community members with conflicts and concerns. And I'll explain a little bit more about what we can help with later.
Awesome. Thank you, presenters. Jumping into our content. First up is Student Health Services.
Excellent. Thanks, Casey. So let's talk a little bit about our student health services, often abbreviated SHS, and there are several components to that you'll hear about in a second. So we are an integrated organization here on campus, and although we don't have 100 medical providers per se, it takes about 100. We have about 110 people working behind the scenes, staff included, pharmacy techs, radiologists, lab counselors, medical providers, nurse practitioners. We have a variety of staff that really make this work for your students. We have three main divisions. We have the medical services, and that includes primary care, women's health. You'll see it on the next slide, as well as psychiatry. And then we have what we call CAP, commonly abbreviated as counseling and psychological services. And then our healthy campus arm, which Jennifer's going to talk in a few minutes. Typically, we're open 8 to 4:30 most days. The exception is on Wednesday. We open a little bit later at 9. Fortunately or unfortunately, many of our students don't take advantage of our early morning appointments, but we often have a lot of availability. So we are open as early as 8 on most days during the week. We do not hours right now, after hours, weekends, or on university, all days are closures. This is a nice slide that just lines or articulates our different services. We have our medical clinic, which is the middle sorts of primary care, strep throat, things like that. We have a nurse's clinic, which folks will come in, they'll get things like vital signs or other checks based on doctor's orders, allergy immunology and immunization clinic, sexual health, women's health, and gynecology. We do have sports medicine services. Believe it or not, our students are active doing all the wonderful things like intramurals and other things on campus, do get injuries from time to time, and we do work there. We have a psychiatry service that includes myself. I have a nurse practitioner that works closely with me right on campus. We do telehealth and in-person services. We have a laboratory, we have radiology, and we have our pharmacy on campus, which is great. It's right in the heart of near the Hendricks Center. What's great for the students is that for the medical appointments, they can go ahead and schedule right online through the My Healthy portal. And it's really convenient to do so. They can also even refill medications, et cetera. There's a lot of different things that can happen with that Healthy portal. They can secure message their providers and contact us that way. Now, the counseling and psychological services does not have online scheduling, and there's good reason behind that. There's the provider schedules are a little more complicated, and we really try and tailor the counseling needs, what the student needs, and the provider's availability. So it ends up being that we right now do not have online scheduling for the counseling and psychiatry, just the medical service. We have an appointment line there as well if people prefer old school. For after hours, we do have some options. So in addition to like emergent care, of course, 911, 988, and there are some local emergency rooms. Oconee is one example. We do have mental health on-call services. So if there's a mental health emergency, there is a line for folks to call through things. And if there's more serious concern, they may be rerouted to Medical University of South Carolina. For those of you maybe from out of the area, you may not know the abbreviation MUSC, but the Medical University of South Carolina, with the mothership, it's located in Charleston, South Carolina. They have virtual urgent care, and we have an agreement with them to provide 24/7, and it's free for students. It includes our university and bridge students. We've paid the health fee, and you have to be physically present in the state of South Carolina because it's services and their licensure and other rules around that. That's the main reason for that. Students just have to be present in our state. We also have, there's academic live care, which is through the student health insurance plan for those enrollees. They have access to those resources, and they're there's a variety of community health centers that we actively can or refer to and have as resources on our website for students. Next slide. So let's talk about CAPS, or Counseling and Psychological Services. So most of the services on the College Counseling Campus Center really focus on, brief solution-oriented interventions. And we'll show you this stepped model of care that we use. It really tries to right-size the service for what the student needs at the time. We do have some self-directed opportunities or therapist-assisted opportunities where students can work alongside a therapist to complete modules, et cetera. We can escalate their level of care, whether it be workshops or groups or even individual counseling or couples counseling for some of our students who might be married. Next slide. So accessing CAPS, as I mentioned earlier, we don't have online appointments, and there's reason for that. We may revisit that in the future. Right now, folks will call in and they'll request an appointment. If it's a crisis situation, we do an intake, we do a phone intake, and we get those students in. If it's during business hours, we get those students in usually same day, sometimes within the hour. We have both in-person and telemental health options, which is great. Some students prefer telehealth, some don't, but we work around what the needs are of the student at the time as well as availability. But typically when a student will call in, there'll be a phone screen. We do a quick risk assessment just to be sure that there is nothing that requires urgent care. And that may reroute how quickly someone is seen or where they're seen in the system. And then after that, they get generally, if there's a need for a higher level of care, they would get referred for an individual assessment where the counselor would meet with them and go through a detailed history to try and figure out sort of right sizing treatment for them. This is what we call our stepped model of care. And really the gist is that a student sort of gets started, but then, initially maybe the early steps and healthy campuses in this as well, it's sort of accessing resources, right? So there's a lot of other things that aren't necessarily full-on treatment that folks can use, whether that's even getting appropriate exercise and meditation and mindfulness and other resources that are present on campus. And we really encourage folks to start doing that depending on the severity and the level of needs for a student that might be experiencing some mental health issues. And then it goes all the way up to higher levels of care. And you can see like online, then group therapy, individual therapy. Obviously, there are some folks that just need a higher level of care than we can provide. Again, most of our service delivery is intended to be short-term, more solution-focused care. And then if folks need longer-term ongoing care, most of that can be referred off campus. But we do some care that's longitudinal, depending on the student and the need at hand. Next slide. And we work very tirelessly with all of our campus partners. I think this is the theme of this whole Tiger Talk, and hopefully you'll walk away hearing, is that we all work together. And that's what really makes this work and why I'm so proud to be a part of the team. All these different agencies, of course, in order for us to work with them, we have confidentiality rules and laws, and we stick to that. But in many cases, the students want us to work with the Office of Advocacy and Success or the Academic Career Center. They want us to partner to find out how we can best help them. And we do that, of course, with the student's permission. I will say, as a teaser, as I sort of wrap up my little section here on student health services, this is right now our student health services are on campus near the Hendricks Center in a building called Redfern. Next June, we will be opening a brand new state-of-the-art building with student health services, and it'll be located on Perimeter Road and really state-of-the-art care, state-of-the-art building design, all of it really intended to have your students' well-being at heart. So I'm really excited about that. For those of you who will be with us for more than a year, hopefully for 4 or maybe 3, and for graduate students for longer, potentially they'll get a chance to experience that. We are really committed to this process, and we look forward to working with your student, whether it be in the medical clinic or at the pharmacy or in the lab or radiology. We're here and be around later for questions. And I'm going to turn this over to partner in crime, Jennifer, who works campus.
Thank you, Dr. Pellick. Yes, so I was going to share with you a little bit about the outreach work that we do to really get upstream of the health and well-being of our students. So we try to create a culture of care here at Clemson where everybody looks out for each other. We notice if something is off and we step up and do something and say something if we see something that needs to be addressed. So we have a number of digital screens around campus that you will see if you come to visit us that share information, educational campaigns around health and well-being. So here are a few examples of these. We talk about celebrating safely, to give students the tools and skills and resources they need to participate in athletic events and to have social activities that they're doing and that they're doing them in a safe way. That campaign is connected to a website that has even more information about tips and tricks they can do to make sure that they're staying safe and looking out for each other. The other two campaigns that you'll see here, the How Are You Really campaign and You're Not Alone, both touch again on mental health and specifically on suicide prevention. You'll see these How Are You Really stickers absolutely everywhere you go around campus. They're on the mirrors in the bathrooms. They're on the doors that go in and out of buildings. That is a way that we can get to students where they are at all times. They can scan the QR code and it will take them to the website to learn more information about how to access care if they need help. So we really try to make it so that the students know that any door that they go into at Clemson is going to be a welcoming place that's going to help them get the support that they need. So next slide. Your students will also interact with our team in a program called Aspire to Be Well. So all new undergraduate students are enrolled in CU 1000 as part of their coursework. And through that, they will go to a 90-minute class with a peer, two peers, so two Clemson students will facilitate this dialogue with your students and talk about some of the issues that students face in college and ways that they, again, can look out for each other. So that's something that they're required to do. But that way we can really ensure that they are made aware of the resources and also know what they should be looking out for in themselves and in others. We also coordinate the Tigers Together suicide prevention advocacy training. We've had over 600 folks completed that training last year. That includes faculty, academic advisors, resident community mentors. So this is the people that your students will interact with regularly. As Dr. Pellick mentioned, we have lots of opportunities for mindfulness. We have a new opportunity for health coaching that's just launching. And then we also do provide services for students in recovery. We have a collegiate recovery program here at Clemson called Clemson and Sober to make sure that students that are in recovery have opportunities to engage with others that are walking along the same path that they are. Next slide. I would encourage you to follow us on social media. One of the things that you can do to help us amplify these messages is know what it is that we're saying to the students. So if we're talking to them about managing their stress during midterms, it's probably a good indication that you want to talk about that with them as well. If we're talking about preparing for exam season and making sure that they are up to date on their vaccines or know what to do if they're feeling sick, those are the sorts of things that we'd love for you to amplify as well. So follow us on social media. That would be wonderful. We do cover all sorts of health topics with the students in both individual and student organization programs, and then a lot, as I said, on social media. So next slide. And then I would also encourage you, and I was dropping some links in the chat for folks with questions, and Dr. Pellick probably is doing the same while I'm talking as well, but go ahead and scan this QR code and visit the New Student Resources webpage if you have not already. So this is going to really walk you through and walk your student through some of the requirements that include immunization records, but it also will help explain things around the student health fee, what the student health fee is versus what's the student health insurance that they can purchase through student health services is, and how those things differ and how they support each other. So just in a nutshell, it's one of the most important things that is that your student will pay a health fee. That's part of their tuition. It will be added to their bill. That gives them access to providers' services, so doctors, nurses, as part of that health fee. There are certain services that there are additional fees for, so things like laboratory, radiology, pharmacy, those sorts of things. So if you have questions about that, I'm sure Dr. Pellet could chime in here and answer some of those questions more. But if you have a really specific personal question, it's also, the folks at Student Health Services would be so happy to talk with you on the phone and talk to you about your particular situation. So, and I believe that is it for me. Casey, do I have another slide? No? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next up, our friends from CARE.
Right, the CARE Network. So we are a student support service. You can go ahead and go to the next slide here. The Office of Advocacy and Success. So we serve all current Clemson students as a trusted place for care, advocacy, and referrals to campus and community partners. So what we do in advocacy and success is manage the CARE network. We strive to inspire individuals' sense of belonging, student success, and retention. We partner with students, their families, campus and community partners, faculty, staff, everyone to empower our students to achieve academic and personal success and to build resilience. So a few of the things or ways that we do that are listed here at the bottom. So the CARE network itself, which is the referral network in that process. We also house the Student Emergency Fund, we share resources, and we help connect to off-campus student services as well. Next. So all community members have a responsibility to support each other's success and well-being. Students respond best to guidance and support provided to them by individuals they know and trust. So OAS is the centralized place for student support and consultation for the community, for the campus community. The CARE Network provides a central university response to students' health and well-being support. We do that through a referral system. So anyone on or off campus can submit a CARE referral that then comes into our office, and we connect with the students, figure out what's going on, and then connect them with the resources that are best helpful to their situation. Next. We offer individualized assistance to current students. We assess individual student needs, identify student support networks, and tailor referrals to campus and community resources. So each referral that we get gets assessed to see holistically what is going on, what not just one piece, like the referral may come in regarding academics specifically, but we're going to meet with students individually to find out every aspect of what's going on and where can we connect to them to best suit every single one of those needs. Like I said, we operate on a referral-based system. Anyone can submit a referral. We are considered a non-emergency entry point for student concerns, and we do not provide counseling or therapy. So the CARE Network helps connect students to therapy at CAPS. We can help them look at off-campus options. We can help find them resources, but we are not a counseling service ourselves. Common referral reasons. So extended absences from class or campus, if your student needs to be away for a family emergency, for their own health emergency or something like that, you can contact us. We help notify your instructors. We help instruct you on how to do that, what the steps are, what the processes are. Adjustment to campus life, so helping you get connected on campus, finding community and that kind of thing. Academic stress or performance concerns, so we can help you connect to resources regarding academics specifically, or to help you kind of, again, holistically look at the issues and what can we help with there. Mental or emotional health concerns. That's when, we would help guide you to CAPS or whatever else would be helpful. Personal or family difficulties, financial or basic needs challenges, medical issues or hospitalizations. Again, that goes back to if you're going to be missing class and you're not sure how to navigate that process, we can help you with that. Social isolation or loneliness, so finding community on campus or mental health help. Concerns about well-being or safety, and supporting a friend or in crisis or distress. So that goes back to, again, anyone can refer. You can refer your friends, family can call in and refer their students, so forth. Our top 10 concerns that we see for first year cert students are physical health. So illnesses, injuries, hospitalizations, they're going to be away from class. They're not sure what to do. Emotional and mental health, they need help connecting to CAPS or other resources. Social relationship, interpersonal issues, usually roommate situations. Academic concerns, death of family members, friends, loved ones, navigating that loss, being away from class, needing to connect with mental health resources, adjustment or transitional issues, navigating academic procedures, substance use concerns, home or family issues, and basic needs. So emergency support. Submitting a Care Network referral is not appropriate if your student or the situation requires an immediate attention. There isn't, or if there is a current emergency happening. In those situations, you would want to reach out to the Clemson University Public Safety. Also, you can call 911 for that. Once any immediate need is addressed, then the care referral would be appropriate for us to help with the follow-up, even if that's transitioning back to campus from a hospitalization, anything like that, we would step in after the emergency has been taken care of by the appropriate people. Examples of emergencies, current suicidal thoughts. So that number listed there is the CAPS phone number, and you would do option 2 if it's after hours. Recent suicide attempts or imminent threats, you would want to reach out to emergency services. Threats of harm to others or structures, actual violence that has already occurred, crimes in progress, serious crimes that have just occurred, people with weapons, any suspicious circumstances or serious medical problems, you would want to go directly to emergency services for those things. So how do you make a referral? This is the link to our website, and you'll see that it says Care Network Referral Form. That's going to ask you some questions about your student, what's going on, that kind of thing, and that links you right to that form. I think the next slide might talk more about that as well. Okay, no. So that form, you're going to want to, it lists where you can tell us who your student is, specifically what's going on, who's placing the referral, all that kind of stuff, and it comes directly to us. Consulting with us. If you want to call and ask questions about how to submit a referral, if a referral is appropriate, those kind of things, you can call us directly. This is the number. And you can talk to any case manager that answers the phone about your concern, and we can help guide you to the referral form or to a specific contact if you need to reach out to emergency services or something like that. We can give general information about campus or community resources. We can give general guidance on navigating the university processes, but there are FERPA limitations to what we can talk about if you call into OAS. We cannot release students' educational records without the student's consent. So calling in with questions specific to your student and maybe their academic records or their involvement with care or CAPS or anything like that, we would not be able to give you any specifics. Okay. You can also navigate to our website and click on the resources button, and it's going to show you all the resources by student issue. So each of those little concern tabs drops down and will give you specific campus and off-campus resources depending on the issue. So you can navigate there if you wanted to kind of preemptively know what resources are available, or if you have an issue and you want to go in and see if you can find what may be helpful for you, you can do that in conjunction with filing a care referral or giving us a call. Okay, the life cycle of a care referral. So how it works, you put in a referral, it is reviewed within 1 business day. So that comes into us, we read over it, kind of get a gist of what's going on, what the resources necessary might be. Then it is assigned a level of care, which has a protocol attached. So that helps us determine the appropriate follow-up, how quickly we need to reach out, how urgent is this referral. Since the referrals are being opened within 1 business days, the student's also being reached out to within 24 to 48 hours of the referral, regardless of the referral. If it's a little bit more urgent, it could be a same day contact with the student. They're assigned to a staff member within the Care Network team to follow up with the student, and then they will offer to meet with the student in person. Sometimes we give them a call and talk through the issue on the phone. They're always offered an in-person meeting as well. For some referrals, our case managers may reach out to the person who submitted the referral to gather additional information. If you submitted a referral and want more information about next steps or what that process looks like, again, you can always give us a call. And then what happens after the referral? So it gets assigned to a case manager for follow-up. And then we kind of go about reaching out to students in multitudes of ways. We email, we call, we send text messages, we send like letters through our note-taking system. We're always going to offer everyone an in-person meeting, regardless of the issue. That again allows us to kind of approach it holistically, get as much information as possible. There may be more going on than what's in the referral, and they can share that with us in the meeting, and then we can address those and find more resources. During our interactions with students, the concern is reviewed, the student's needs and current support is assessed, and the resource referrals are made. So we meet, we find out what would be most helpful for them and make sure they have that information before leaving us. Our goal of following up with students is to check in and ensure they have academic and personal support needs for the identified concern. And again, we offer a care meeting to every student. Important things to note. Care meetings are voluntary. We will always provide resource information via email, even if they decline to come in and meet with us, they still get that resource information. The student does assume responsibility for following through with the resources. We give them to them, we explain how to access them, that kind of thing, and then, it's kind of ball in their court to take it on from there. Some situations require us to report directly to or seek assistance from other departments. So if we know of a resource that would be beneficial for a student, sometimes we make that kind of a warm handoff with the student. We'll contact that campus partner with them and initiate that relationship and let them take it from there. We do not have any authority over academic processes or outcomes. We can help explain processes to students, and we can kind of walk them through and guide how those processes work and where the appropriate place for them to go to initiate processes are, but we don't really have any say in how things work out. We can't get your absence excused for you. Referral sources. We do not disclose who submitted a care referral without the explicit permission from the referral source. So when you submit a referral on our website, it will ask you if you're okay with being named as the referral source, and we honor that if you do not want to be known. We do encourage everyone to tell the student that they've submitted a referral if they're comfortable with that and if the situation allows, just because the student kind of has that heads up of who's reaching out to them, what we do, and how helpful it can be. But of course, if that's not the case, then we do try to honor the best we can, not disclosing who referred. Okay.
All right. Bring us home, Tessa.
Okay, well, you all have heard from our great colleagues who lead offices really designed to handle whatever's going on with your student. And what I love about the partnerships that we have at Clemson is that if you go to any of these offices and you would be better served by a different office, then we'll get you there. And so that's certainly true for our office in the Ombuds office. But based on the resources that you are being presented with tonight, our office essentially when you might come to us first or differently is if there's a conflict. So we have in the Ombuds office have a background in mediation. And so if there's roommate conflict, if it's conflict with your student and a professor, if it's something in a student organization, if it's you trying to get information and you are hitting some roadblocks with an individual that you are encountering, then that's a time when we might get those referrals from another office, or you can reach out to us directly. So go ahead to our next slide. So our office, we like to say, is a place to go when you don't know where else to go. So now you do know where else to go. So that's great. But in the event you are forgetting the different resources that are out there, you can come to us and we will make sure to get you or your student where they need to be. So we can work with people one-on-one. We do a lot of coaching. We can help make those referrals to the offices that in some cases might serve your student or you better. And then I mentioned we do a lot of mediation. We do facilitated dialogue. So sometimes that's with an entire group of people, students in an academic department or students in a fraternity or sorority or student organization, just needing to be able to touch base about a situation or get on the same page about things. Yes, thank you, Cheryl, for putting that link in. And then also we do training in the event that your students just need to build up their skills in some different areas. Go ahead. One of the questions we get a lot is ombuds an acronym for something? And it's not. It's a Swedish word in its own right, but it means person with a message about something. And so go ahead to the next slide, please. It corresponds with the two different levels of work that we do. So you can click both and we'll just get both of those up there, please. Perfect. So on the local support side, there's really no limit to the types of things that people bring to us. And again, if you or your student would be better served somewhere else, we'll make sure to get you there. Most often with undergraduate students, it's things like roommate conflict, grade dispute, not thinking that the grade was fair, or just I need to have this conversation. Sometimes it's conflict with family or with people back home. But whatever it is that's happening, we provide that local support to make sure that the student or you are getting what you need in this situation. But then we also work on this global scale at Clemson by gathering the trends of things that we're seeing and reporting those to leaders. So in the event we have all incoming freshmen of a certain major dealing with a similar issue, then that would hit a trend and we would go to those leaders and say, hey, here's one of the things that we in the Ombuds office are seeing, and then partner with that leader and that department to figure out how can that be addressed? How can that be improved so that that doesn't happen to students in the future? And then, as I mentioned, we also do trainings. So I've been here about 5 years. My first year at Clemson, one of the areas that I noticed was a trend was emotional intelligence and just needing those skills, needing a reminder of some of that. So created a training in that, and now I offer that open to anybody, and students will certainly be able to engage in that. But then also some faculty members will have me come in and do that in one of their classes for the semester. So making sure to get that education and those tools out to everybody. Go ahead, please. So what makes our office different from the other offices on campus, and not just the ones you've seen tonight, but across the institution, is that we operate from these 4 standards. And this is true of any organizational ombuds office. So first, we are always impartial. We do not represent the university. We are able to hear from a student and make sure that they feel acknowledged and they're getting what they need, and then hear from the other student or from the faculty member and make sure that they feel acknowledged and get what they need. And then potentially, if everyone wants to, bring them together to mediate those situations. Go ahead. Next is informality. So sometimes people come to us because they don't know if they want to engage in a formal process, and they don't know what that would look like if they do. And talking to us about a situation never instigates a formal process. The only time we would report something without the student's involvement or your involvement is if there's imminent threat of harm to self or others. And for that, we would go directly to, we would call 911 or get the help in that way, rather than starting a formal process. So coming to us is let me think through, is there an informal way to resolve my situation? And if not, what are those formal options, and what would that look like if I engaged in that? Next is independence. So we are also an independent office on campus. We do not report to, we're not a part of HR, we're not a part of student affairs, faculty affairs, or the Title IX office. We work closely with all of those offices, and I'm grateful for that. But we are a separate office and have separate reporting lines. And then finally, we are also a confidential office. So if you come to us, if a student comes to us, we will keep the fact that you've come to us confidential and what you bring to us, unless you tell us you want us to reach out to someone else and bring them into a conversation, or if you want us to take whatever it is you're transmitting and give that information to someone else with or without your name attached. But all of that remains completely in your control or in your students' control. And so nothing happens without you all saying, hey, this is what I want to see next. And so that confidentiality is sometimes why people come to us before going directly to their professor or before going to some of the other resources on campus, just being able to know that there's not going to be any retaliation after talking to the Ombuds office. Go ahead. Because of those standards, there are some things that we don't do. We are not mandatory reporters in our office. We don't accept notice on behalf of the university. Like I mentioned, because we're impartial, we don't advocate on behalf of anyone. And so when we are a part of meetings with other people, we make it very clear what that's going to look like, because especially if we meet with someone one-on-one, we don't want there to be a misunderstanding that, oh, well, when your professor is in here, we are not your advocate to your professor. So being really clear about that. We also can't make any binding decisions or change policies, though sometimes we go to leaders and recommend some improvements or some changes in policies based on just what we've seen the impact of those policies be. We don't participate in any formal process, but we make sure that anyone is set up for success in those situations. And then the only records that we keep are the issue, the type of issue, and where it's coming from in the university so that we can gather those trends. We don't keep track of identifiable information. Okay, go ahead. And then that's sometimes people in good fun will roll their eyes like, oh, the ombuds is involved, somebody is in trouble, because people come to us with conflicts and with challenges. And I accept that. I know what I chose. And we also can do some proactive work in a way of saying there isn't a problem here, but let's make it so that there isn't a problem moving forward. So here are some of the trainings that we provide. And this is something that we offer broadly to the university, so your student can get connected with us and see these opportunities. But then also, if your student's a part of some kind of organization, then they can reach out to us and we can offer this to a specific group that wants to come together for any of these topics. We also can do large group dialogue. It can be in response to a conflict, but it also can just be we're a new group or we are initiating a new initiative or new process. And so being able to just check in, maybe establish some shared expectations for how we're going to do this, how we're going to work together. And then we can do one-on-one coaching in a proactive way. So maybe your student is starting something new or taking advantage of the different opportunities on campus and just needs some coaching through those situations. So again, not because something is wrong, but being really intentional about how to get started on some of those opportunities. And then finally is our contact information. So if you're familiar with the area, we are located right off campus next to the Esso Club, which is also across the street from Little John Coliseum. So within walking distance of campus, but right off campus. So we do have really great parking because you don't have to deal with campus parking to get to us. There are 3 ombuds in our office, and we all serve students. And then my colleague Michael and I also serve staff and faculty. And then my colleague Dr. Halfaker serves faculty as well as students. So there are 3 of us, and we can meet virtually. We can, with a little bit of advance notice, meet after hours, and really just there to provide support with whatever's going on, working with these other offices, making sure that you and your student get exactly where you need for whatever's going on. So I will check the questions in the chat, but thank you guys so much for being here.
Awesome. Thanks, Tessa. I'm also going to pause before we move on to our kind of final wrap up and reminders here for any lingering questions that may have been submitted. I know there may have been one, Dr. Pellick, that you wanted to speak to.
Yeah, I think there's a couple themes, and I think it's worth mentioning. One of the things, and I'm a parent of 3 children, one in high school, one going to college, and one that's completed college. One of the things parents, I think, it's like a different thing to understand is there's confidentiality rules and regulations about things that schools and colleges can share and not share with parents, whether that be health information, location of students on campus, their grades. And you heard FERPA being mentioned as one of the overarching things that can describe those things. There's HIPAA in the medical world. People have heard of HIPAA. You don't release, medical providers don't release information to just anybody. So I do highly advise, I think, as you get familiar, we don't have time in the talk to go into this in gross detail, but for people who have somewhat complex situations or situations where they may need to have close contact with their family member, maybe there's an illness, really understand those rules and regulations. At the student health clinic, we typically will require a release of information to speak with parents regarding any medical condition, whether that's strep throat, depression, a sexually transmitted disease, anything that they're coming in to seek care for. They're an adult, and so parents don't just automatically have the assumed ability to get that information. And I think understanding and like learning and reading about that so that you're all informed. And if there's a need to know, having the student ahead of time, they can sign releases of information, and then we can communicate with whoever we need to communicate, whether that's an on-campus partner or whether that's a parent. And I just say that just as a teaser to read up on that. It's probably again beyond the scope to get into every little detail, but I know that some of you are worried about your kids. I am too. I got my own, and it can be hard as they fly out of the nest to understand like where independence starts and stops, especially as they move into college. And so I just want to throw that out there. That's important. And then we did have another question about, there were 2 questions, other medical questions. One had to do with insurance. So there's the student health fee, and you heard Jennifer mention that. We do have services that are covered. If your student pays this, if you or your student pays the student health fee, they do have access to, and we put the link in the chat of things that are covered with that. So if they paid that fee, they could come into primary care and be seen for various conditions. There are some things that do not fall in that. And typically at this time, we're out of network for most insurances except the student health insurance plan. However, as we move into our new plan and we move into our new building in a year, I do anticipate that we will be coming online with a lot of insurance networks for various services. So stay tuned. That's going to be an ever evolving thing. We recognize the need for that. Some of you that are out of state, it may be a little bit trickier. Whether we end up becoming in network for your insurance provider. But take a look at that list. You'll see some of the things that are covered, things that aren't covered. Then folks can decide whether it's best to get those services get done with us or in a nearby area and clinic. And there was a specific question about our pharmacy. And for example, we do order specialty meds. We do work with specialty meds. Our pharmacy is actually very, very good. I don't know that we would store meds that were already ordered and paid for by through another pharmacy or another mail order delivery. But if our pharmacy is the one that's ordering them, then typically they will often store certain medications that are, if they were a part of the whole process from the beginning. And they are very, very, very good. I love working with our pharmacy at Redfern. So just a few things that I wanted to put out there. And I think the FERPA, HIPAA, those kind of confidentiality questions, I think are really important when you get into this wellness space. I know that you're all concerned about your loved ones, and we are too.
Absolutely. Appreciate that, Dr. Pellick. A question about the insurance waiver form. Is that something that's connected specifically to student health services? Do you know?
That I'm not 100% sure, but I think we can work on trying to figure out where. I think when registration comes through and admissions comes through, that's one of the things that gets sent out. So we can make sure that folks get that.
Perfect. Yeah, we can look and see if that's something that we can pull for you to the folks who submitted that question. I would also say that is likely, just as Dr. Pellick shared, connected to your students' admitted student portal. So the place that they have been checking to kind of go through their orientation process. There's an enrollment checklist on there, one of those kind of to-do items. They likely have some communication about that in their Clemson email as well. All right, I think we have caught up on our questions here. So I want to thank our panelists again for being here to share their content and answer some of those questions for you all. As I mentioned, just a couple of quick reminders here. I know this link made it in the chat as well, but the Clemson Parent and Family Experience Portal is a tool I would plug just generally. That's what we use for all family communication. So university news that comes out, articles that we would receive as staff members, any updates of that sort that impact you or your student, that's where you will receive those. And then we also have many of you in an orientation kind of specific community on that portal where we have sent targeted communication since May, and we'll continue to do that through the start of the school year. So very good chance that you already have a profile in that portal, but we'll love for you to go and verify that and configure those settings. That portal is also what we will use to share out this recording. So give us a couple days to kind of get things uploaded and edited, and then we will share out this session recording, and then it will live forever on the Clemson Family Programs YouTube page as well. We do have a few more of these sessions throughout the summer. So this, I think, was our fourth of 14, I believe. So just a quick reminder, we've got another one tomorrow evening about all things financial aid and financial student services. So in the same way that I imagine you had many questions about all things wellness, I'm sure there's some questions about the finance of it all as well. So would certainly encourage you all to make it to that one. And then we have a few other coming up as well. All of these can be found on our website. So if you scroll over to the Family Programs tab and then all the way down to the Family Orientation section, you can see the links to register for these and then the links to go and find those recordings as well. I believe that does it for our time together this evening. So thank you all again for joining us, and we will see you at the next one. Go Tigers! Good night.